Welcome everyone. Welcome to those that are already joining us for our AI plus Excel online workshop. We're about to kick off shortly and we're just waiting for a few more people to join us on the line. Brief introduction while you're waiting, I guess, is my name is Sarah Wheaton and I am from Kane Mathrick Tech. I'm an account manager here, but really there's a special guest joining us as well. You might see his face on the screen now. We've got Aidan Clifford who'll be formally getting introduced shortly. But we're excited to share this workshop with you this month. We had great feedback about our recent Copilot workshop, which was all around how to use Copilot in Outlook, and now we're stepping into the world of Excel. So we are just waiting for a few more people to join, and please stand by. Seems like we've got a lot of people joining us. I can hear a lot of additional folks joining us on the line now. I'm actually going to introduce you to one of my colleagues while we're waiting. All right, well, that just gives you a bit of an insight to what it's like working in the world of tech here at Kane Mathrick Tech. We're always looking for these advancements in technology, and that was my friend Izzy, my colleague, who's probably going to replace me one day. I shouldn't joke about that because I think I can still pronounce some words a little bit better than Izzy can, thank goodness, but who knows what's ahead of us. I think we're about ready to start now, so thank you for that warm introduction, Izzy. Feels bizarre to be talking to a robot. What I want to do is warmly welcome everybody on the line here to our Copilot plus Excel special workshop. If you've been joining us for these workshops that we've been holding recently, you'll know that they're going to be very invaluable in terms of being able to offer you some really great tips and tricks on how to use Copilot in your working environment. So a couple of things that I want to do just to kick things off would be just to let you know that this is a very interactive workshop and it's all going to be focused on the end user, so how you can use Copilot to help you in using Excel. We want you to be able to ask questions throughout, and then it's my job as the MC here to be able to filter those questions through, or filter them, push them through to Aidan as we can. I can see that there's already somebody that's popped a comment in the chat, and it's from one of the users that is unable to hear. I think we'll get Charlie from our marketing team to reach out to that user and just see if we can have some assistance through. There's more than one, so hopefully it is just a small glitch with the headset configurations at their end. We'll see how we go. But if everybody was having the same problem, we would probably think it was from our end, and I can see that some people are saying that they can hear okay, which is great. All right, so just a reminder again, please feel free to use the Q&A tab up the top. You can pop some questions in there and I'll be going in there and pulling them out, pushing them through to Aidan, and that probably leads me to do a warm introduction to our guest speaker. So we have got Aidan Clifford joining us today. So you will have met Aidan in our previous workshops. So Aidan is the Microsoft Business Manager Team Lead at PackState, who are our strategic Microsoft partner from KMT. We're really excited to have you with us again, Aidan.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. No, pleasure to be here. Sorry, I was just putting some instructions or just some of my insights into the selecting the right speaker for your team settings. So hopefully, if anyone is having any issues that they're not able to hear today, then please follow those because that usually resolves it for me. But if you do have any ongoing issues, let me know. Yeah, no, thanks very much, Sarah. I really appreciate the introduction from yourself and from Izzy as well. Always good to have a nice warm intro from the AI itself before we get into the session today. So I will take control of the presentation. If that is showing up now there for you. So just as Sarah mentioned, my name's Aidan Clifford, the Microsoft Business Manager for PAX 8, working very closely with the KMT team. You may have been part of these sessions previously. We're really just looking to try and demystify a lot of what the buzz is around Copilot, a lot of the buzz around AI, and how you can start to make that quite tangible in your day-to-day and start to get those incremental wins that provide a lot of ROI on the solution, but then also more importantly, inject more time and productivity into your day. As Sarah mentioned, please feel free to ask any questions throughout. We want to make sure that this is a valuable use of your time. But for the purposes of today, we're going to be focusing particularly on Excel, which I think there is a really untapped amount of opportunity to get a lot more into your day. I don't know about everyone else on the call today. We probably have a varying degree of experience within Excel specifically. I'm more on the intermediate/beginner side of things. So the only way is up for my Excel usage, and hopefully I'll provide some examples on how you can start to integrate that into your day-to-day from here. So just for a bit of a quick introduction or just a quick agenda for what we're going to do today, just a couple of really quick slides just to help set a baseline for why we're having this discussion today and some of the ways that I've got the ball rolling with Copilot over the past sort of 12 to 18 months that I've had the opportunity to work with it. And then we're just going to spend most of the time on that demo within Excel. As Sarah mentioned, we had some great insights and some feedback on the Outlook session we ran recently. So really excited to dive into this one. Excel, as I said, is a bit of an untapped one. So there have been quite a few advancements over the past few months. So really excited to get into those, and fingers crossed the demo guides are playing friendly today, so we can get through those. So firstly, when we talk about generative AI, most people are probably familiar with ChatGPT, Google Gemini. There's a whole bunch of different competitors out there in the marketplace today. But why are we talking about the Microsoft side of this conversation in particular? Well, it comes under the banner of Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. And the way that it differentiates and the opportunity that brings to the table for you is it does give you access to the same large language models and technology that are powering some of the other solutions that you'd see in the marketplace. Microsoft is actually investing to make sure that it's the top of the line models that are going into Copilot as well. So even with the free version, you should be getting a higher performance than if you're using, say, the free version of ChatGPT. Some of the other insights that you can get into here as to why it's a unique opportunity is that these tools tie directly into your Microsoft 365 data that is sitting within your environment today. So if you're part of the wave over the past 4 or 5 years that moved from an on-premise or an external file share scenario into the cloud, into Microsoft 365, you've already got that data there sitting to be utilized by the technology and really able to utilize large language models within that organically, not having to do any additional work to tap into that usage. What then adds an additional layer of value on top of this as well is that this technology ties directly into the Microsoft 365 apps that everyone's been using for their day-to-day for quite a long time. Me personally, as long as I've been a student or in the workforce, I've been utilizing pretty much Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. So a familiar environment to then utilize this new technology, which should speed up the use or speed up the productivity you're able to gain from it and the actual insights and usability that you're able to extract from it as well. But what we're looking to see is that Microsoft is actually tracking a lot of the results that it's been having since it introduced Copilot into market and into the SMB space about 12 months ago. Some of the really positive things we're starting to see is the vast majority of users who have utilized Copilot said that they're feeling more productive, they're enjoying using the tool, and when offered a different way for a business to invest that additional cost or that additional investment, they're choosing to keep with the Copilot licenses. The 70% figure that you can see on here, that was contrasted with some of the other options, which was, would you prefer to keep your Copilot license or get free lunch once a month, once every 2 weeks, once a week, or multiple times a week? And they only found that sort of balance started to change around about free lunch every single day, which is obviously a much larger cost than providing an additional license once a month. So, but I'm sure if we showed the insights to those people who love their lunch, then they'd probably change their mind and want to keep Copilot as well. But when it starts to get into more of the quantitative statistics, we can see from these results, if we look into Teams, so people utilizing Teams to track their meetings, create meeting notes and action items from their meetings, they found Copilot users were 4 times faster and more effective than those who are using traditional ways of tracking their meeting notes, just typing them or writing them down. So higher productivity and higher utilization there just straight out of the box. If we extend that use case into additional things like searching, writing, summarizing, using things like Excel that we'll talk about today, they found time and time again that Copilot users were 30% faster than those who weren't using Copilot as well. So really easy to start to track some of the impact and some of the return on investments businesses are starting to see through tools like Copilot versus doing it manually or doing things the old-fashioned way. The last example that I like to utilize here is that if we look at specifically at the sales department, we can see the average salesperson was able to save 90 minutes per week by utilizing Copilot for Microsoft 365. Whilst this is a great thing that you can have 90 minutes back in your week, if you think about sales being a revenue generating department, think about the additional 90 minutes that can be re-injected per salesperson into the business to then create a multiplying effect on the value that time can create to your business, and the impact that that can create as far as revenue or hitting targets over a 12-month period would be absolutely staggering. So just some kind of ways to start thinking about, not only are we saving time here, but we're releasing time to be reinvested back into the business and the outcomes that continues to drive. But just to kind of get the ball rolling and start thinking about how we can start to utilize the tool, when we start to think about utilizing Copilot or any generative AI tool, we start to think about prompting here. I've just put a couple of examples up on the screen here. My personal experience has been out of the box before, having a look at Excel a lot more for today's session, was really the low-hanging fruit around Word, Teams, and Copilot for 365 chat itself. So you can start to see I'm summarizing a lot of pages, I'm creating briefing documents, summarizing meetings, I'm asking specific questions within meetings. But more interestingly, down the bottom there, you'll see I start to use Copilot to synthesize multiple data sets at the same time in order to get insights and corroborate that information together. Examples of that being, please create a one-page executive summary across all the chats, emails, and documents about a certain customer. You can then add certain layers, say about that certain customer in the past 30 days, just to be more specific. Or you can use it for different functionality, like please list all of the teams or emails that I haven't responded to in a previous period of time, such as 24 hours, just to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, and then you're up to date with everything, because we know how many different ways that people are being contacted multiple times a day. Things can start to get a little bit complicated and people can start to fall behind. So a few of the guiding principles I just wanted to leave us with before we have a look into Excel is just really about the prompting ingredients that we should be using when we're trying to get the most out of our AI technology. And it's really thinking about what is the goal that we want to achieve from our usage of AI today. What's the context? Why do we need this, and who's involved in creating that? So for example, referring to specific clients, referring to specific campaigns. But what is also the source that we want to refer to here? Do we need this information from the internet, or do we need it from specific emails and Teams chats, or from SharePoint sites to be able to extract that from, and within certain timeframes? But then finally, expectations. How do we want AI to speak to us? How do we want that output to actually look like? Do we want it in dot points, which we cover off at the start, but do we want it to be professional? Do we want it to be casual? Do we want it to be really succinct? Or if we're trying to fill out, if I think back to my student days, trying to fill out 2,000 words, can I make this 2,000 words so I can fill out my essay limit as fast as possible? So different sort of ways to just think about that prompting, just to mold it to that expectations. And the more instructions, so trying to say introductions, more instructions that you're able to give to Copilot, the closer it's going to be aligned to that output that you want from the first time, even though you are able to keep contributing or keep interacting with that prompt once you create it as well, which is one of the great things about generative AI.
So they're the ingredients for the recipe for success, would you say? Boom, boom.
Yeah. Exactly.
No extra charge for the humour today, guys.
I keep the analogy going, I think. So definitely 100%, because if you think about these 4 areas to contribute to your prompt, it's really going to help you make sure that that output is as close to what you want the first time. But even if you don't put it in there, or you put something you want to change later, you can start to see in the output how it got to that information, rather than letting the AI do too much of the thinking without those parameters from you.
Yeah, I think this is gold actually. And just to let everybody know, we'll be sharing this slide deck with everybody at the end, because unlocking this approach to being able to prompt Copilot really gets you such great results, as Aidan has said. And you can be feeling a little bit lost in the early days of getting a Copilot license unless you utilize these ingredients.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's a great point, Sarah. I think one of the fortunate things I had was I had access to Copilot quite early on in the piece, but one of the things that did leave me native to my own devices was not many other people in my team had access to it at the same time, for a couple of months anyway, before Paxate invested in Copilot a bit more widely. So I was kind of left to kind of compare my own experiences against each other, but I do encourage, if you have multiple people in the organization or even external communities to speak to, there's a ton of different groups on Reddit or within the Microsoft tech community as well. Just give a bit of guidance on how they've found success. Similar if you go to the gym, just kind of getting some guidance on how you can get up and running and get that progress a lot faster than if you're just left to your own devices.
Great.
Awesome. Cool. Well, without further ado, let's get on to the demo time. I'll just stop sharing my screen for one moment, and then I'll bring up. Everyone loves seeing a spreadsheet, so I'll.
Do you know what? I had a lot of clients telling me how excited they were for this particular workshop. I didn't realize there were so many passionate spreadsheet owners out there in the world. It's quite different from the sales world that I sit in, but I am going to learn how to be more excited about Excel just by watching this, I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, no pressure. If there wasn't pressure to keep up with Izzy from the start now.
There's a great hashtag from someone already in the chat saying spreadsheet gang. Love it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, just to make sure, Sarah, you can see my screen now. You can see the spreadsheet data in front of me.
It's a little small for me, but that could be my age.
That's all right. I can try and zoom in, just make it a little bit easier. That's one of the things with trying to provide the demo for it. So I'll try and do my best to zoom in and out so everyone can get a bit more of a perspective. But what we're looking at today is I've created a fictional company. If you've been part of these sessions before, Aidan's Copilot company is the name of it. It's doing gangbusters since Copilot came out. But what we have here is a couple of pieces of dummy data around our HR department, different department managers, some sales data, and then also the account managers that relate to that sales department as well. So a couple of different sheets that we want to start interacting with today to try and get some more insights about our company, try and get some more insights into how we can put some strategies together, but also if we do need to do some more administrative tasks, such as uploading to CRMs, changing the visualization of what the data looks like, how do we start to do this if we aren't that familiar with Excel and we don't know how to do it sort of the previous, more manual way. We all know there's a lot of functionality within Excel. There's a lot of functionality within the M365 stack that day-to-day people don't actually tap into. Microsoft gives the advice that I think only 10% of features are being used from their applications across the board. And one of the great intentions of Copilot is how do we give the average user that ability to access more than that 10% that they know how to use? How do they start accessing 50, 60, 70% of the features that are within there to really get the return on that investment? The first thing I want to do is I just want to show a bit around, just a bit of housekeeping as to how I access Copilot within the browser. I pretty much use Copilot within the browser experience myself. It's a bit easier to present, but also from the Microsoft development perspective, they deploy new releases of Copilot into the browser edition of their applications faster than the desktop editions, just as it takes one less development step in order to get that rolled out. It's usually pretty close behind, but for the purposes of showing this, I want to show the most up-to-date version of Copilot. If you find that you're using the desktop version and it doesn't have the features that you're expecting or some of the demos that we cover off today, just try it in the browser edition as well, because chances are that's where it's going to work if you do have that variance in experience. But where I just want to get started here is there are a couple of different ways to access Copilot within Excel itself. One of the ways, which is probably the most popular way, is going up through the Home tab and then going all the way across to the right-hand side and clicking on Copilot here. But as there are quite a few different user experience or user interface changes occurring day to day, you can also do it by right-clicking on the data that you have itself. And now you can see within Excel, there's a little Copilot tab within this menu where you can start to get started with some preloaded prompts to get an output from straight away, or you can click on Ask Copilot to open up the familiar window on the right-hand side to start putting in your requests there. Before I start putting in any requests, just for a bit of insight, there have been a lot of changes into Copilot within Excel over the past 3 to 6 months, and they're starting to roll out pretty quickly now. One of the really exciting ones, which I've tried to tap into for today's session, but will become a lot more powerful as it goes on as well, is Microsoft is not just applying formulas through Copilot now, it's also using advanced Python scripting in the back end, which if you're a developer, you can start manually updating it that way. But if you're a layperson like I am in that realm, you can start to use Copilot to tap into that advanced analytics to really get some much deeper insights and start to work with the technology to unlock more of what would usually be reserved for the finance department or the development department as well. So really excited to see where that's going. And I'll try and give some insights into how we can start going down that route in future. But to get started, you can see Microsoft is actually providing a lot more opportunities to get started on that first prompt in the door, how to really start to unlock that first initial button press. So rather than having to think about what's going to be the first way I get started with Excel, here's a couple of opportunities that we can start to look at here. Explaining formulas, creating a set of charts just utilizing Microsoft's best insights there, creating new rows, or even some tips and tricks to try and get some updates. They also provide a list down the bottom here of what are the most popular prompts that people see in order to get up and running. And you can refresh this list if you try to think of some new ideas as to how to get started, but it does refer back to your data in order to make sure that you kind of have some new ideas to get from that standing start and get running in here. Just to kind of show a bit of the sort of administrative tasks that you can do here, just some of the formatting changes that you can do. I might just start with some pretty easy ones. So if we just see in column C and column D here of our HR department data, we're showing satisfaction and evaluation levels of our employees in different departments with different salary bands. I don't really like the appearance of those decimal points in column C and D. So I'm just going to ask Copilot to please change column C and D to a percentage. Hopefully we're able to do this pretty easily and pretty quickly, because then it just goes to show if you aren't that familiar with formatting your data or just making it appear the way you want it to, Copilot should be able to step in and change that one for you. Bit of an introductory way to utilize the technology, but hopefully we get some good results in just a moment. One of the ways that we can see what Copilot is doing, it does give us a bit more of an explanation these days. When it first came out, Copilot would just do the action and then you have to try and make sure that it was verified and it's what you wanted to happen. Now you actually get a dot point of what Copilot is thinking. So you can see applying a percentage format change to satisfaction level, applying a percentage format change to the other column as well. And then you have the ability to apply that. And there's some accessibility opportunities if you need to listen to those instructions or those outputs rather than reading them. if we go through and apply that, just be 1 second and hopefully that changes over. Obviously, we've still got those double digits at the end. Please remove decimal places. Let's see if that updates that for us as well. And hopefully we've got our first wins on the board and then we can proceed from here. Once again, we have the same output as well. Let's apply that and bang. So I've gone from having those decimal places to more of the percentages, just a bit of an aesthetics change that I wanted to put in place. But now we can start to get cracking with some insights based on the data we have in front of us. What I want to do here is give a bit of license to Copilot within Excel to try and make some observations for us. If we're trying to think about how we would operate day to day with some departmental data, we'd have to think about what do we want to explain back to the business? What insights do we want to get? And sometimes it's not that easy to get the answer to that from the top of your head. So if you do have some assistance from your AI friend, so we could use Izzy in here or we could use Copilot, we can make sure that we have just give it an opportunity to check this out for us. So if I just simply put in, please visualize my data, I always be polite to Copilot. Just a bit of an
I do that
policy,
too. I'm not sure if it was just how I was brought up or if I'm just really hoping to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's my country upbringing or I'm just hedging my bets for the AI future.
Be friendly to your robot.
Exactly. Oh, and we didn't have too much luck there. Let's try again.
Ready, please?
Yeah, I won't say please this time. See what happens. Data. If not, it usually works pretty reliably, but I do have a backup just to kind of show you what we should be expecting. And also, apparently doesn't like the manners. Just to be a bit more direct is also a good way to do that. But what it's been doing here for us is creating a pivot table. You can ask manually if you want it to create a pivot table for you, if you're unfamiliar with how to do that in Excel. But what we can see is just by visualizing our data, it's proceeded to collect together the amount of different employees within the department into a pivot table. What we would do next is to say, please add to a new sheet. So we can have to look at it a bit more effectively, and then we can go through and just make sure we apply from there. Add it to sheet 1. Sheet 1 is not there, so let's try one more time. Awesome. But if in doubt, just ask it the prompt one more time. Chances are it will go through that time. What I'll do here is just zoom in on our data. It's created a pretty easy table for us to use today. But if you do right-click on this, you can also go to reveal the fields that go together to create that pivot table. So if you wanted to go ahead and create some other views within that, you can start to move around the values that create that pivot table as well. So if you want to put full names into, say, the columns, it should create a pretty long table for us. We'll see what happens, but then you can start to see where those counts are coming from. Probably not the most effective use of it today, but I just wanted to show how you're able to get to that creation of that pivot table and then start manipulating that data there for you. I'll go ahead and just delete that tab for us. But then what I will show you is another one of the visualizations that Copilot created for me earlier when I was working with that HR data. And if you do ask for it to create some graphs for you, there's an example of what it's able to do. So when I asked it to visualize my data by satisfaction level over department, what it did is it scoured through this original data we were looking at and then correlated that to the department that it was coming from and then just made this graph for us. So we're able to see that there is a satisfaction level that is quite high within the management team. But then if we start to go down and compare the different departments that are in the business too, we can see it's a little bit lower around accounting, product management and support. And then we have the numbers to back that up, which are back to those decimal places from earlier. So just another example of how you're able to do it to visualize your data using graphs. If you're unfamiliar with how to use graphs within Excel, it can really help you accelerate that experience and make sure that you can get these up and running, add them into your presentations and just give a bit more evidence into some of the cases that you may be presenting back to the business as well. But what I want to do is just go through another couple of different examples for us. And some of the people may have seen this earlier, but one of the things I really like to do is think about back in my days when I was putting information into CRM systems, back when I was trying to upload into different external third-party tools, there was a scenario which always seemed to pop up, which was splitting a full name column into a first name and a second name column. I know, Sarah, we've spoken about this one previously, and it's something that I've definitely done manually over the years.
Absolutely.
But let's see if Copilot is able to assist us with this one today. So if I really just say, I'll try please again. I always like to be polite again. Please split full name into first name and last name. Let's just try this prompt to see if we're able to get to a scenario where Copilot is able to split column A into the first name and last name. So if we needed to go through a scenario of uploading into a CRM system, if we were going to create an email that we're going to send out, we want it to refer just to the first name of someone. There's a whole bunch of different scenarios, which if you don't know the formula to do this, it can be quite tricky, but hopefully Copilot is able to speed up the process to which we can get there. Copilot a few moments, hopefully shouldn't take too long, and perfect. So one of the things that I really like about how Copilot interacts with Excel now is that not only does it accept the prompt, it starts to go through and show the thinking of it. It gives us the formula that it's going to be using to perform that action. And then you can start to view the explanation that goes into that if you want to do it manually next time, or just understand the reasoning of how Copilot was able to get that output for you. But then it gives us a output example of what it's going to do if we then insert it into our sheet. If we go insert those columns.
So it's coaching you as well.
Yeah, no, totally. So it's always good to know. It's good to know if you don't need it as well, but it's always good to know in the background. So if we go through and just verify that data, we can see that it's done a pretty good job. So Rainer Park, Daxon Mays, all of these names that I actually got Copilot to make up for me as well. So that's why the data might be a little bit silly when we get a little bit later on in the presentation, but Copilot actually helped me create this. If we just go through and verify a few things, we always want to make sure that we're checking that the outputs from our Copilot are accurate. We can see that this is probably pretty ready to then upload into the next step of whatever process that we want to do. So I'm pretty happy with that one. I'll just delete those columns for the time being. I wanted to go through another scenario with this HR data, which is really starting to look at lookups. So traditionally, people would be using like a VLOOKUP or an HLOOKUP or an XLOOKUP in order to try and correlate data across a bunch of different data sets. The scenario that I want to work through today is we've got our employees, we've got the department that they work in, but we don't have the managers that relate to the department that we're looking at as well. Chances are, if we're going to be following up to see which departments may not have answered an evaluation or may have a particularly low score or something that we need to have a future action on, chances are we're going to have to reach out to the manager of that department to understand how we can proceed formally from there. What I have here, just on a different tab, is the list of the department managers from all of the departments we have within that data set. So I'm just going to copy these and bring them across to my sheet and see if we can create an lookup, using Copilot to get us started. What I'll do is I'll just paste those into the page because currently with Copilot, it doesn't work too well across pages, but within the same page, that is the best way to get the technology to work together. So I'll just be one moment and I'll just get a prompt here so we can get started to see if we can perform this lookup utilizing Copilot itself.
Good idea. And give us a thumbs up or a reaction if so far you're learning some new things about Copilot in Excel, if you like. Yeah, great.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've got a few people giving us thumbs up.
Oh, fantastic. I'll refer back to the chat in a few moments to see if there's any questions as well, just after we go through this prompt. But I'll just explain how I got to this point so far before we click go. So what I've got here is I've got the table in column I and column J, and then I've got our main data set, which hasn't been changed so far. And I've put through the prompt saying, please create a lookup of manager in column J for department in column I and add to column F. So a little bit kind of tricky. It is something that you do need to sort of get a bit more used to. Copilot is improving on this front as well as understanding these instructions, but this is where those ingredients start to come into play. We really want to make sure that it knows where to get the lookup from, what it's applying it to, and where we want to insert it. So to try and refer back to this way of approaching the prompt, if you want to get it to get the output that you want. I tried it a few different ways. It was pretty accurate most of the time, but fingers crossed, this was the one that produced the best result time and time again. So hopefully I put my money where my mouth is in a moment when this comes out.
It's frightening being live in front of a big audience, isn't it?
Hopefully it's a forgiving audience, but hopefully we get the right result for you. It was working earlier, so we want to make sure that this comes through because utilizing the lookup function is one of the main reasons why I would utilize Outlook or Copilot traditionally within Excel, and it is something which I've been stuck upon in my career, not being the best at Excel without it. If we start to have a look, it's labeled it as the manager lookup. It finds the manager for each department by looking up the department name and returning the corresponding manager's name. If the department is not found, it returns not found. So that's a great explanation for us. Utilizing the X lookup, so pretty similar to the V lookup. I think it just applies a bit more logic to the top of it. So I think it's a cross lookup is the long term for it, if I'm not mistaken. And then it started to create this this column that we can then insert in column I. So I will click insert, see if we're able to do it. Don't think I got the result that we wanted to the first time. So unfortunately, what we'll do is I'll just try one more time just to see if we can. Just be 1 second, see if we can get this one going. Because it is a valuable use case, and I just want to see if we can get that one there for you. You can see Copilot was trying its best, but I'll just be 1 moment. Please create a lookup of manager in column J, or department in column I, and add into column F. Maybe I'll see if I change it to column E, just to see if it's able to readjust those expectations and line up correctly for us. As I said at the start, it does take a little bit of playing around in order to get that right use case. But as you can see, if this is something that you're unfamiliar to do with beforehand, and here we go, I think we've got the right output for us now. So I'll go ahead and insert that column, and then we can just see if it's worked properly for us. The where it may have gone wrong is just referring to the not the best column within the main table. But if we start to have a look now, I'll just zoom out a little bit to give you a bit of a view because Alice Johnson's name does pop up a lot. We can see all of these employees are within the sales department. If we look across to our table, sales department is run by Alice Johnson. Let's go through and verify a couple of other employees. Accounting, all by Bob Smith, accounting by Bob Smith. And then if we go to the bottom just to kind of double check another one, let's go to product management by Henry Moore. And we go product management by Henry Moore. So perfect. So with that little bit of a tweak in the prompt, we were able to get the data to talk effectively to it. So if you do run into some issues with the first try, just try and do a little bit of a tweak, as we saw before with those prompting ingredients. Try and identify where it may have been going wrong, then just try again. It's pretty easy to just kind of restart that prompt and we're able to get that right result. So hopefully that's a pretty good use case of how you can start to do lookups. I know it's something that is pretty commonly, unless you're in finance or accounting, people can struggle with a bit in the industry. So hopefully that is a good use case.
Certainly helpful from what I can see, with a few thumbs up that were going around. Yep, and look, a round of applause. Love that.
Awesome. No, thank you very much. I see there's a few dots there. Sarah, you able to let me know if there's any questions just while I get ready for the next stage of this one?
I will. There is one question in here, so it's good timing. Michael's asking, does the data need to be in defined Excel tables for Copilot to work?
When it launched, it did. So it needed to be within tables for Copilot to work. I was actually testing this out earlier and it didn't need to be in a defined table anymore. I think to get the richest functionality, it's always best to put into a table because then it's easier for you to format and filter afterwards. But no, it works within just a normal, or without that table formatting around it as well now. So one of the other advancements for Copilot over the past little while.
Okay, good. Keep those questions coming. If anyone else has any other questions, pop them into the Q&A or in the chat and I'll keep my eye on both tabs and feed them through to Aidan.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So what I want to do now is we've seen a couple of different examples with that HR data. I've moved across to some sales data that Copilot put together, which is why you can see some of the names in the company name and the product name are a little bit silly, but you give the AI the job without those parameters. I don't think I gave it the best prompt, but it came up with something that was pretty funny, so I thought I'd keep it in for today's session. What I want to do is just show how Copilot can think for itself and start to come up with some ideas of how we can start to manipulate data. Sales data is a pretty good one because there's a lot of different insights we can extract from it. And one of the things I want to do is just give it the opportunity to suggest a formula column, to suggest a way that we could build from here. So if I just use this preloaded prompt that I have down the bottom right-hand corner, let's click on that and then just see what it's able to come up with for us. Sarah, I'm not too sure if you had a perspective on this, but I know that when I'm looking at sort of sales data, looking to do some forecasting or looking to sort of provide some insights back to the business, once I get a first running start, then I can kind of get the ball rolling and start to work from there. But that first kind of idea of where to get started, I'm often just staring at the spreadsheet and just kind of like the numbers are a bit overwhelming. But,
yeah, I feel like I'm backwards even further. I'm actually going to try and encourage myself to use Copilot in Excel because at the moment I'm really old-fashioned and use it mostly for listing, and I don't try and manipulate the data too much. I'm probably showing my age, but with the Copilot icon, I'm definitely feeling more eager to get involved and give it a whirl.
Oh, awesome. And I think, yeah, that definitely would be a pretty consistent experience as well. I think Excel's got one of the biggest opportunities, but probably the least utilization outside of it. So anyway, we can help here. If we look at what Copilot just put through just from asking for a suggestion on a formula, an average sales per unit is probably a pretty logical place to start, just getting some ideas and some trends on some data that's hard to get insights just from the format it's currently in. If we could just go insert column, we'll see what it's able to attribute to there.
Oh, nice.
And we can start to, yeah, so average sales amount, we probably need to tidy up the way the data is labeled a bit more so we understand it most effectively. But if we have a look at that, yeah, we've got our sales amount by the quantity sold. What's the average value of that unit that has been sold here by the product? So we can then start to pull those together. But it's done the maths for us, which we would otherwise need to do manually or come up with that average for ourselves. So hopefully that's a bit of use there. One of the other things I want to do is, because we do have a pretty decent sized data set, so 56 or 55 lines, including the headings, I wanted to see if there's any anomalies in here. I want to see if there's any outliers that we can sort of extract, like top sales, days that we didn't do particularly well. As we see, we have dates here as well. What are some of the outliers that Copilot might be able to extract for us? So I'll just really ask, are there any outliers in this data? So just a pretty simple one like this. We don't have to think too hard about the ingredients that we're going to put into this one. But once again, we're letting Copilot do the heavy lifting for us just to kind of search through, see if there's anything that we can extract and anything we can refer to. But once again, we get a small preview as to what Copilot is thinking before we can start to have a closer look. But let's have a look at what it has put out there for us. So quantity sold has a couple of outliers at the date mark. So if we think about the dates that are within here, Seasonality is something that could come into play that we would want to identify potentially by the company that are selling or the products that we are selling. So let's take a closer look and add that to the sheet. And from here, I'll just try and zoom in. And from here, I think I'm pretty happy with what Copilot has put together. Firstly, it's pulled together the sales by date and the quantity of the goods sold on those days. And then it's also provided a visualization on some of the outliers that it's extracted for us and identified those on the graph for us. So from a pretty simple prompt, I could say we probably have some pretty meaningful data here.
Absolutely. It's helping you interpret it as well as just giving you ideas on what you might want to do with the data. So it's giving you some insights as well. So that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, no, and I think this would, so say for example, if we're thinking about that standing start earlier, all of a sudden we could see some insights into outliers being on these 3 dates in particular, but then we can start to dive in. Who are the companies that have been doing those sales? What are the products that are selling on those days? And are there ways that we can accelerate those results, or look to the days that it's not occurring and how can we try and emulate that more often within those months to increase sales as well? Awesome. Well, what we'll do is go back to our sales data itself. Once again, to try and use Copilot, I might just try and add create a new column for the sales amount versus the average amount that has been sold. Or what I need to do is then first create an average sales for each product column. So I've just got a couple of things that I want to build on top of each other. I'll just put in this prompt to create a new column for the average sales amount for each product and see if it's able to extract that for us. Awesome. So we've got our explanation once again. We've got the formula we're able to use later, and then the output. Let's just pop that in there for us. So what we've extracted here, just to kind of interpret the data, is we've related the average sales amount for each company from here. So as you can see, some of these numbers recur because actually for the product, sorry. So for the product that has been sold, some of these numbers recur because it's referring back to that product specifically. So all of a sudden, we've started to get some insights into what is the average sales amount for each of these products, and then pull that together, which we could then start to put some visualizations together for as well. But what I want to extract now is some of the variances that we've got. So say, for example, if we sell this product on this day for a certain amount, how much does this vary from the average sales amount? So we can start to get some more outliers as well. So just some ways to start building upon this. The way I've done that is asking for a new column with the sales amount versus the average, which shows the differences between column C and column F. So let's see if Copilot's then able to build upon that for us as well.
I'm going to pause you just quickly. We've got a question in from one of our passionate Excel users. And wondering if we can use Copilot for more complex analysis, such as, and there's an acronym in here, I bet you I don't know what it means, IF formulas or nested IF formulas. That's probably just showing my ignorance with Excel, but maybe that means something to you, Aidan.
Yes, so you definitely would be able to use it for if formulas. And I'll show one of the ways that we're able to do some more advanced analytics with Python in a moment. I know the if formulas are pretty sort of traditional Excel formulas too. We won't be able to do that today because we just want to make sure those prompts are correctly structured for you. But if you reach out to the KMT team, more than happy to help make sure you get that for you. But it's definitely within the remit of how Copilot's able to work with the data. Just need to be specific around the language that we use in those prompts.
Okay, great. Well, we can pass some information back to you. I'll get Charlie, our marketing team member, to take note of that question and feed the info back.
Awesome. Yeah, and thanks very much for the question. I think it's great to think about the extension of these use cases. I'm just being mindful of time. Sorry, it may have taken a little while with a couple of those prompts, but what I'll do is I'll just move on to the next one just quickly, because what I want to show is relating to some of the other advanced uses is around conditional formatting. I think conditional formatting is one of the easiest ways that you can help communicate some of the data within your data set and identify any patterns within there for both graphs and just general interpretation. What we can do with now we have our sales amount versus the average. We've got a whole bunch of different variances in here. We can ask for suggesting conditional formatting just straight from Copilot itself, and then let's see if it's able to do this for us. The reason I wanted to show this as an example today is not only does it try its best to kind of figure out what the conditional formatting best use case would be, it actually starts to give you some options into how you want it to perform from here. So if we look at some of the options that Copilot offers here, it says highlight the cells of sales amount versus average when sales amount cells are less than 10,000. It also does the same if it's highlighted less than 1,000. So it gives you a few different variances of where it thinks the line should be. You can be a bit more specific in the prompt if you want it to be a certain value, so greater than 0, for example. But what I want to do is I'll just use this first one just to kind of show how that operates and then how we can start to utilize it from there. Awesome. So what it's going to do is apply that those parameters for us by utilizing the yellow fill on there, and this is the formula that it does. I'll just apply this for us, and you can start to see how it starts to populate here. If you think about it, less than 10,000, it looks like it's done a pretty accurate job for us. A lot of minus signs, so that's what you would want to see if we want to do that. I go a little bit further down the page, may have been a couple that would have fallen into that bucket. So I do need to verify what Copilot has done, but we can see that on the most part, it has achieved that conditional formatting for us. What we're able to do from a filtering perspective, if you're unfamiliar with how to utilize it in tables, is we can now then click on that drop-down menu. We can either sort by color if we want all of the yellows to sit at the top, or we can start to create a filter by color as well, in which we can just click that button, and then all of a sudden, all of those conditional formatted items are now all we can see on the page. So just ways that we can start to build that Copilot prompt on top of each other for us. What I'll do just to move on upon from here, just to kind of give a bit of an indication in what you can do with the advanced analytics. It does take a couple of minutes, so if you do need to pop off at 12:45, I'll just show you one that I prepared earlier. But if you do even just click on advanced analytics utilizing Excel, what Copilot does is it starts to build out this entire page. This was just actually done within one with one click of the button. So I'll do it for a few moments, or in a few moments if you're able to stay on the line. But if you do need to go off, I just wanted to give a bit of an indication of this. So Python within Copilot for Excel, it started to create some previews as to company names by product and collecting together their sales amounts. It then also started to provide some pretty meaningful statistics around what's the count of the values within that table, what's the averages within those different variables, and then some of the other different ways like the interquartile ranges, standard deviations and other statistical terms that I may have forgotten since my uni days, but I need to revisit them sometime. But then it starts to provide some of the trending graphs. This is all from the same prompt earlier, and then some other graphs as well, as far as I'll just zoom in so you can see this around top performing products and companies. So if we see here, we can see sales amount by top performing products, sales amount by top quantity sold by product as well. And then what I did dig on a prompt on top of this was asking for one company in particular, what were the sales that went into creating that one as well. So I just wanted to kind of show a bit of an indication. If you do need to jump off the line, this is what you can start to achieve. But Sarah, I'm happy to stay on just for a few more minutes just to kind of put that one through. If you want to do that, happy to use that, or we can set up another session to go into Copilot in Excel 2.0. Happy to do what you guide.
Well, maybe we can if you've got another 5 minutes, we can probably allow for that. And as you say, people can drop off if they need to. But to be honest, everyone might be literally enthralled and hanging on to your every word at the moment because you're really pushing me into some nice demos. So feel free to go forward. And if you do have questions and you're holding on to them, don't need to do that. You can just pop them in the chat and I'll just squeeze them in.
Awesome. No worries. We'll plow ahead. Yeah, if you do, there will be the recording, I believe, but also just feel free to reach out if you do want any more information on this. I'll just do one moment and I'll just get up the advanced analytics just to show you how that works. So what I did was we're accessing the Python functionality within Excel. So just a simple prompt like create a set of charts utilizing Python is the way we can get started here. It should ask me if it wants to start an advanced analytics session. Awesome. So it's performing as required. So utilizing the keyword Python or advanced analytics definitely opens the door to this. We'll click on that button here. It is pretty new when it comes to Excel and Copilot. So we'll see what it's able to do, and hopefully it's able to give us a bit of an indication similar to what I was showing on the page just earlier. But you get a bit more of an insight into the inner workings of how it starts to create these for us. Please do send any questions through at the moment as well. This can take a couple of moments just as it is accessing some pretty advanced compute in the background to build out. So we will just see it starts to build out. But if you do have any questions that we want to cover off in the meantime, now would be a pretty good time also.
Yeah, I've checked the channel. There's no questions at this stage, but pop some in there, everyone. Your question is always often somebody else's question as well. So it's just about who's the bravest to speak up. I know I would have a question of like, should I be Googling the word Python? Because it's I haven't heard that before. So there's a lot for me to learn from this particular demo.
I think it's a very popular development language or programming language for the past few years. I remember trying to do some introductory courses and stuff like that, but I figured I'd leave it to the smarter people. And then AI came along, so
yeah. I have actually heard it recently. Actually, one of my clients was talking about it, so I really am going to Google and understand some more about it. Now, I have a question in from Lolita. So, can we use Copilot to analyze data over multiple tabs? And I think you talked about this right at the beginning, or at least you said you got data across tabs, but it was easier on the one sheet. Is that right?
I was able to get it across tabs. It wasn't working as effectively as within the same tab. So I would advise copy and pasting the data into a single sheet in order to make sure that it's all speaking in the same area. But if I look at the amount of changes for Copilot in Excel over the past 6 months, I dare say that functionality will be introduced and effective pretty quickly because it is something, especially with those lookups, I was always referring back and forth between different sheets when I was doing it traditionally. So I'd expect to see some changes here. A great question as well.
Yeah, we definitely have been seeing that, haven't we? I know it came up in our last Copilot webinar as well, where there were so many new changes that it was really helpful to always stay abreast of them. Is there a way that everybody can get an update on what's happening in the world of Copilot? Does it get released and prompted into Excel, for example, like here are the new features, or how do people stay abreast of the changes?
I'd probably lean into say here at Pax8, we do try and keep up to date with a lot of the content we share on YouTube, but a lot of the individual consultants on YouTube and the Microsoft website itself, it is quite challenging to keep ahead with everything because it goes across so many different apps and so many different features. But most of the there's a few local thought leaders. I think Dan Anderson in Melbourne is a pretty good guy to look at on YouTube. But I'd say, Sarah, reach out to the KMT team because we can collaborate and make sure that we have that conversation directly.
We do have experts within our team. I may not be one of them, but sure can MC a webinar on such.
And if you send through the questions, we can either answer them together because I'm working with the KMT team all the time, or we can integrate it into the next session because we are planning to run these pretty frequently, as we know that the user change and the ability to get those insights quickly are the ways that you get the actual value from Copilot. But if we have a look at what the Python scripting was able to do, or the advanced analysis, it's looking pretty similar to what I was able to get on that earlier sheet. So I'm glad I was able to show that being created live, just to show that there wasn't much manipulation going on to create this at all. So we can see those statistical, or those main stats at the top. We can see the trend graph of sales over time for sales amount and for quantity sold. So really getting those outliers that we asked for earlier, but just in probably a bit of a nicer graph, to be honest. Product performance, so how many products were being sold, the sales amount of those as well. So pulling together most of the most frequently asked questions I would usually put through for a sales sheet, then going down to achieving both of those visualizations that we looked at before. And then we also have that specific visualization for Hubris Holdings, which was the top seller. One of the things that I did want to kind of show is the insights that you can start to get from this, even just from the surface level. If we look at the sales amount and the quantity sold, Hubris Holdings is pretty much the top in both of those categories, or very close to actually it is the top in both of those categories. But then if we start to go through to see what they actually did sell, there's all these two products, Beta Widget and Eater Machine, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. We then compare that to some of our sales data up here. We can see that that's actually the lowest selling product in the other graph as well. So if we were starting to look into how we can get some meaningful insights and some actions out of this data set, it'd be like, how would our largest and most successful customer be selling the thing that we're selling the least? Is there something that we can tell to the other companies that we're working with? Is there another way that we can relabel the product that makes it more accessible by others? Just some of the insights that you can start to get from this sales data to then have a chat to the marketing team, have a chat to the executive, but actually get some insights to take to the next stage of just getting some actionable insights from the data itself.
Very helpful. I think we're just about out of time, Aidan. Did you have anything last that you wanted to present, or are you happy to kind of wind it up now? I'm just conscious that we're
no, sorry about that. No, so that was all from me. I just wanted to show
passionate demonstration from our Microsoft partner Pax8. So, but before we let everybody, yes, there's some applause coming in. I think everyone has found that really helpful. I know that even though we were over time, we have had the most amount of people to stay online to see that last demonstration as well. So if anyone has any last minute questions, we might have a couple of minutes to take those. And while people feel like popping them in, I'll just let you know that we will have some more Copilot workshops coming up. And to give you an idea, the next one is in May, and it's going to be focusing on Copilot and Teams, which that one I definitely have a lot more experience within. And in June, we're going to be then touching on Copilot within Word, and July's all about Copilot and PowerPoint. So we've got a lot in store for you this year. It's one of those dedicated tasks where we want to help our customers understand how they can get the most out of this great AI Copilot tool. There aren't any other questions that have come in, Aidan, so I just wanted to thank you so much for everything that you've done with this particular demonstration. I found it really interesting. You got me thinking about how I can use my Excel spreadsheets to better inform my decisions around some of my client data. And yeah, we look forward to having you on again next month.
No worries. No, I appreciate everyone taking the time, and I hope there were a couple of insights you're able to start utilizing if you have a Copilot license. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the KMT team or myself. Happy to help.
Yep, great. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.